Hi guys, and welcome back to week 2 of Life After Sexual Abuse and Assault. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much to everyone who has reached out and supported me this past week, and everyone who has shared the video. The last time I checked, it was about 800 views, which is a much larger audience than I ever anticipated, but that means this is working. A lot of you are saying you're so strong and you're going to help so many people, but that's all of you guys too. By sharing the message, by educating yourself, you're helping others. You are doing just as much, if not more, than I am. So please continue to do so throughout the following weeks, and I can't wait to continue to go on this journey together. Now we will dive into the educational portion of this week's video, and it will be over the effects of sexual abuse and assault. And this just means that everyone is going to have ways that this affects them and ways that it causes them to live their everyday life differently after, and feelings and emotions that we may experience. And basically, I want you guys to understand that from what I've found, most of the effects are going to last as long as you don't face them. So if you choose to try and block them out and try to not think about them and convince yourself that you don't have these effects and that you're okay and stuff, then the effects are going to last with you into adulthood and beyond that. And this is just going to try and help you understand that everyone that shares these experiences does have effects, and that it's okay to feel them, and that I want you to understand your own effects and how you can get through them and how you could maybe eventually overcome them. So with that, we're going to dive it right in. So 3 major types are psychological damage, sexualized behavior, and a change in behavior overall. These are 3 major types of effects. So with psychological damage, the first one is relationship anxiety. So I'm going to do an entire video on this, so I'm not going to go into big detail right now because there is so much to cover with it. But essentially, this means that you have anxiety when thinking about the future with someone physically or mentally, like in a relationship, because of past experiences that you've had. So along with that, it gives you feelings of being different or unusual, or not having the same emotions as your peers that may have not experienced what you've experienced. Many suffer from depression and anxiety, as well as other mental health issues such as low self-esteem, lack of confidence, eating disorders, obsessive behaviors, and aggression. Other things are PTSD, fear and paranoia, nightmares where you wake up in anxiety attacks, they could reoccur, extreme fear of being touched, unwillingness to submit to physical examination, which can lead to health issues. And this is often because if you have a general distrust of males, or you have a general distrust of females because your abuser was a female, then you're not going to want to be in a room alone with a female in the doctor's office. And people of power have abused that power and have taken advantage of people, so it can just be a general mistrust there. All of these things can lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms that have long-term effects, such as self-harm, excessive alcohol consumption, and taking drugs. Thoughts of suicide are also not ruled out. Other things that we don't always think about are pregnancy, as well as sexually transmitted diseases that could be both incurable or curable, and that's because you don't have the choice in whether to use protection. Other things that are sexualized behavior, and the sexualized behavior, signs of this can be sexualized play with dolls, public masturbation, requesting sexual stimulation from adults or other children, and age-inappropriate sexual knowledge. And this can oftentimes come from other children themselves in the context of sexual abuse. And while, yes, those thoughts could come from them themselves, oftentimes when a child abuses another child, which is like more common than you would think, it's because that's all they've ever known. They were most likely abused themselves, and so the only thing they know is this sexual and this physical contact, and so they feel like it's normal themselves, and so they do it to other people, and that in no way makes it okay, that in no way makes it right, but that is signs to look for. So if you see sexualized behavior in children, then that can make you think, like, to dig a little deeper and do a little bit more investigating on what exactly is going on there, because there is a reason, there is a place they learn that from. So with that, there's also a number of behavioral problems, Withdrawal and mistrust of adults, specifically adults that have the same attributes as your abuser. So, for example, if your abuser wears glasses, or they have a beard, or they have blue eyes, for example, just things like that. It can cause a general mistrust of everyone with glasses or a beard or blue eyes. Aggression, temper tantrums for no reason, physical harm to others. They do this to take out all of the rage their body has suppressed and release it to others. So I was very aggressive when I was little because I wasn't able to communicate. When you're little, or even whenever you're assaulted, sometimes you can't communicate. So when you don't communicate, your body has to store that. It has to go somewhere, and so your body suppresses it, and then it wants to get rid of it somehow. Even if it isn't vocalizing and talking about specifically what happened to you, it wants to get rid of it somehow. So it's in an aggressive manner. Behavioral problems in school, running away, which can symbolize like running away from your problems or call for help. And like I said, oftentimes if you suppress these effects and don't try to work through them, then all or most of these effects will linger into adulthood. Counseling is a key to decrease or prevent symptoms in the future. This is a way that has helped me tremendously to get where I am. For the sexual assault portion, this comes from a very brave and dear friend to me. Her and I have discussed what's happened to her and what's happened to me many times over the years, and we've always been an outlet for each other. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, like, I need some help on the sexual assault because I haven't experienced it myself. And I mean, I'm doing research, but I need experience from someone who has lived it themselves. And she was so brave to let me use this information, and I'm really proud of her, and I just want her to know that she's going to help so many people by doing this. So some of the effects of sexual assault, it can be that you can't or don't want to leave the house after it first happens. The only time you would be willing to leave the house would be when you would be there by yourself. You just have this big fear of being out in public and seeing anything or anyone that could trigger you, but you also don't want to be alone because you're most likely alone whenever it happened. So fear of things like going into the gas station or grocery store or anywhere that men or women, if women were your abuser, might be. So other effects are feelings of guilt or shame that you could have done something to prevent it or stop it. So, as a child, like when you get older, you're like, how could I not know? Like, why didn't I just tell someone? Whenever you've been sexually assaulted, you most often have feelings of why was I not strong enough to stop it? Why, like physically or mentally, but I just need you to know that it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with your abuser or the person who assaulted you. You did everything you could in the situation, and you are not to blame. You are not to blame at all. Feelings that it is your own fault and you brought it on yourself. So people could feel this if they hung out with someone that they didn't necessarily know super well by themselves. You could be like, why would I do that? Like, I should have found someone I trusted more. But once again, it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. You shouldn't have to live your life in fear, and you shouldn't have to know someone for years before you hang out with them. It's not your fault. Nightmares, nightly, are another effect, because most time the assault will happen in the dark and or in a bed, so the nighttime is the hardest part for most people. My friend allowed me to share one of her nightmares, and that is that she is standing outside of a glass box, and inside the glass box is herself in the room in the exact moment where she was assaulted, and she just has to watch through the glass box, and she can't help herself. She can't get in the glass box. She just has to watch from the outside and sit there and cry, and it's just a repeated nightmare for her. And like, nightmares are your subconscious coming out, and it'll cause anxiety attacks, and they occur over and over, the same ones, especially the hardest ones. So waking up from these dreams unable to breathe and bawling, having anxiety attacks, hallucinations that the person who assaulted you is in the room, picturing his or her face on other people. The likeliness of this happening can increase when there is a sexual activity. This can cause the victim to freak out, and then once the actual person's face reappears, they realize it was just a hallucination, but they're not going to be the same for a couple hours or even a day or two after that. So there are always going to be triggers as well. This is another effect. Triggers are things or words that just flip something in your mind and make you think and feel the exact emotion, like that just icky, yuck, hurtful emotion. Things can be like seeing rape on a TV show, hearing the word, hearing the person's name, anything that reminds you of the person, anyone who looks like the person. Those are all triggers. Many, many more. There are countless triggers, and all of them are different for everyone. It can also cause you to feel the need to carry a weapon to keep you safe because you feel like you couldn't protect yourself. So in what way can I protect myself? The main effect for both abuse and assault is it changes the way you live your everyday life. Most people live their life out of fear, mistrust, and paranoia after they are abused and assaulted. And my friend said this: I always dress and act tough now. I won't hardly wear girly clothes anywhere anymore. I walk and talk more manly and tough to be perceived, not to mess with. I used to enjoy seeing the men look at me, and now I'm scared when they do. I won't hardly wear my hair up anymore because he pulled it so hard and controlled me with it when he raped me. I try to lift weights as much as I can just to trust myself to be able to beat the living crap out of someone who would try me again. This is probably partly due to me blaming myself for not being able to stop it. When I walk around the grocery store or anywhere in public, I am always watching every person's every move. Most often, I am unable to engage in conversations with the person I am with in public because I am too focused on checking my surroundings. I just want to say thank you again to my friend for being brave and sharing her portion of her story, and that took a lot of guts to do, and it's going to help a lot of people. And commenting off that, it does affect the way that you live your everyday life, and it will until you continue to try and help yourself and continue to try and work through these things. And she is doing that. She is trying to overcome her fear, and I'm trying to do the same thing for myself. And it just stinks because it literally does sometimes take you out of the moment you're in and with the people you're in, because you're constantly checking your surroundings and you're constantly trying to make sure that you're okay and that nothing bad is going to happen to you. With that, I am going to begin talking about my personal experiences and the way that I have dealt with some of my effects and the way I'm still dealing with them. So I'll talk about these effects mostly in past tense because my abuse did occur 13 years ago, and while I still am dealing with it most days, since middle school I've been working really, really hard to figure out how to control my effects and how to get through them. So this has been a long time coming. I've been able to make it to where some of my effects are minimal now, and I do still have bad days, yes, and weeks and sometimes months at times where I am triggered very easily. But overall, I'm getting to where I'm on the right road to where I need to be. And overall, I live a great and happy life. And with that, I just want you guys to know that since I'm talking about it in past tense, I don't want you to think that this is something that just happened overnight. I've worked towards this, and you can too. So overall, I would classify myself as someone who is mostly just scared of everything. Like, I'm scared of any living creature that I just can't read their mind, and I don't know what's going to happen next. So I have no trust in human beings that I don't know or have a close relationship with. So if I've never met someone before and I have zero background on them, then I'm not going to have that trust. But I've gotten to the point to where if I do know someone, like I trust them. I have a general trust for people that I know. It's important to understand your effects and realize which ones are your hard limits. And this means like it's where you draw the line and you don't think you could ever feel safe or comfortable in that environment. And then knowing the effects that you can take baby steps to work through. So there's two different types. My hard limits, going to a male doctor that I talked about before. I wasn't abused by a doctor, but it would require me to be alone in a room with a male, an older male, most likely that I don't know, and that line of work has had history of abusing their power. So, for example, the Olympic gymnasts that really started the Me Too movement, okay? And that's a hard limit for me. I'm just going to see a female doctor because I'll still get my health taken care of, and I just don't have to be put in the situation. So, hard limit for me. Another one is haunted houses, because I have a reoccurring nightmare. And this is that my abuser is hidden somewhere in the haunted house, and it's always a different place. But I never know when he's going to come out and get me and, abuse me. So there's no necessary reason for me to go in a haunted house. I can live my life without going in one, and my mind doesn't let me separate the fact that that is a nightmare from, actual haunted houses. Like, obviously he's not going to be in it, but my mind just won't, realize that. So it's hard limit, not a big deal. I'm just not going to go to a haunted house. Another one is taking myself out of situations where I don't have to be alone by myself at night. This is when I'm the most scared, is at night, especially when I'm in my room by myself, which is a whole nother thing. So I'm going to avoid going into public places that aren't necessary at night. If there's something I must do, I know I could do it, but I'll avoid it if it's not completely necessary, because I know this is when my biggest likelihood of an anxiety attack taking place would occur. Another thing is leaving restaurants or public places if I see someone giving me predator eyes that I talked about in the last video. Once again, it's something that results in anxiety for me, and so I'm going to calm myself down from the anxiety attack. Like, I'm required to remove myself from the situation to calm myself down. So if I need to remove myself from a restaurant, I'm fine with being willing to admit that to the people I'm with. If they love me and they are as close to me as I think they are, then they'll understand that. And that's a hard limit for me. So effects that I took baby steps towards. I have dealt with a lot of relationship anxiety in the past, and as I said, I'll discuss that further in depth in a future video. But I took many, many, many baby steps, and eventually I've gotten to a place where I am comfortable in it with the right people. It took a lot of trial and error, but I now feel good about my judgment of character, and I feel good about my safety. It took a long time, and it was the hardest thing out of any of my effects, but I'm getting there. I feel like I am there for the most part. I began working with a counselor to minimize all of my effects, and I was then clinically diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And that's really hard for me to admit. I don't know why I feel that way. I feel like it's because of the stigma attached to that as well, but it's something that I literally haven't told more than probably 3 people. But my counselor and I worked together to minimize my other effects. And from my first doctor's visit, when I went, I was the second highest percentile of anxiety. I scored and depression, both of them. I scored a 17 for both, and I can't remember exactly what that's out of, but she said it was the second highest percentile. And my next doctor's appointment, about a month after that, I scored a 5 for depression and anxiety. So from a 17 to a 5, because I worked so hard and so diligently, and I got the help that I needed. And now I'm slowly trying to work myself to where I don't need that extra help, and I am getting better at doing it myself and knowing how to get rid of the anxiety. And I think the depression stemmed from the anxiety itself. So that is that. That doesn't mean I still don't have anxiety attacks, but it does mean that they occur far less often, and I'm working with ways to deal with them. I lack self-esteem and confidence issues, which is an effect, and this is because you wonder what isn't good enough about you to make people not want to hurt you. You feel like, I've said this over and over to people, and it hurts me to know that I've said this to people, because it's probably like, oh my gosh, but I feel like there must have been something wrong with me. Like, what was it that made him choose me? Like, why was I someone that he could do that to? And that's something that I've struggled with over and over. But with that, I've taken baby steps towards what helped me to get to be a more confident person, and that was that I realized I don't deserve to be hurt. I deserve to be loved and treated the way that I treat others. There's nothing wrong with me. As I said before, it's everything to do with my abuser and nothing to do with me. After realizing that and surrounding myself with people that mirror that type of love and support towards me and cutting out the people that don't, that's a huge key. I realized what I deserve and what I've always deserved. Another thing that I've worked towards is I'm triggered often, which can cause frequent anxiety attacks. I've found ways to calm myself down with help from my counselor. So first I have to breathe and count until I have my breathing under control. And this is surrounding myself with people that I care about next. After I have my breathing under control, I need to find people that I care about and I trust. And if I can't be in person with anyone, like if I'm somewhere where I'm by myself at a convention or something, then I will call someone. I have to have a familiar voice. Otherwise, this year at school, what my outlet was, if I had an anxiety attack and it was during the day, I would go to the cafeteria. I would surround myself with familiar and kind faces. If it was at night, then I would call someone, or I would go into my roommate's room and just have a casual conversation with her. And you don't have to say, if you go in the lunchroom, you don't have to say, oh, I just had an anxiety attack. Just go in there and be yourself and just calm yourself down. And then if you need to talk to someone about it, that's fine too. You can do that. But you don't have to tell someone, hey, I just had an anxiety attack. I need to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to let people know that if you're not comfortable with it. I also fear my safety anytime I am alone because my mind still thinks I'm a scared little girl sometimes. And I feel that little girl comes out in me and says, you couldn't defend yourself then, so what would make now any different? So let me first just say, no one who is abused or assaulted is ever the same after it occurs. You're automatically stronger for it. And I do things like lock my door when I'm in my room or the bathroom to make myself feel more safe, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that. That's something that makes me feel safe, so I'm going to do it. If it makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself, then do it. I used to be scared to go to public places by myself, but with baby steps, I first started going at daylight with friends, and then I would go daylight by myself, and now I'm working on going places that are necessary at night, and the necessary part is what makes it different for my hard limit. So yes, I have lived my life in fear, but I am not going to do that anymore. So yes, I have lived my life in fear, and yes, some days I still do. In fact, most nights I do, and I'm okay with admitting that because the nights do scare me, and it's something that I'll continue to work on. But as I was praying about this particular episode and listening to Christian music, the song Chain Breaker by Zach Williams came on. The first part of the song goes like this. If you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life. There's a better life. If you've got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison-shaking savior. If you've got chains, he's a chain breaker. He can help us break these chains that have been weighing us down. God is our shelter and our armor. He tells us never to fear anything other than God himself. He is always with us, and I know you're thinking, if he's always with me and protect me, then how can what happened take place? Because I have had those same thoughts. I have. I know that they're not right, but I have had them. And the truth is that it was with us every day leading up to the abuse or assault. He was in the room with us every time it occurred, and he has been with us every day since. Some things we will never understand, but we must know that the devil was inside our abusers at the time of the action, and perhaps it led us to this moment and God's purpose for us. This moment to make something good out of the bad. This moment to stand up for ourselves and stand up for those who are unable to find their voice yet. To stand up for those who have not yet been abused or assaulted, but will be in the future. We can no longer live our life in fear. We can't let these effects affect us or define us for the rest of our lives. Yes, some of the effects are inevitable. They are normal, and we may never truly be healed from all of them in this life, but that doesn't mean we can't try. We can take it one day at a time. We can ask for help. We can push ourselves in small steps. We can let go and let God and know that He is a good Father and He is using you for good, and there is purpose behind this. There is a purpose behind what happened to you, and it is up to you to find out what that purpose is with the help of Him and with others if you so choose. For one person, the purpose might be that you prevented it from happening to someone else. For another, it might have happened because God wanted you to live the rest of your life without that toxic person in your life. For example, this could be the case if the person you were dating did it to you. It could be to educate others. It could be to change the abuser themselves by making them realize they never want to hurt anyone else in the way they hurt you again. There are a million reasons this could bring purpose to your life and to others, and the key to healing and overcoming these effects is trusting that when we take time to heal these effects, God will be with us during the process just as He always has been. Feel what you need to feel. Admit to the bad and hard days, but push yourself in a productive way so one day you can look back, whether it be a year from now or 20 years from now, and say, the actions of my abuser used to haunt me to where I couldn't live my life for me. I was living in fear of them, but I took back my life for myself because I deserve to really and truly live again. I am able to go to the grocery store by myself now. I have found someone in my life that I can love and I can trust. I chose to overcome and minimize the effects. I broke the chains that were weighing me down. I won this fight.